the sound of the impact.
Lost the wings, lost the tail.
I was so afraid.
I knew I was going to die.
I'm buried under concrete. I couldn't move.
People dying, people crying, people screaming.
The search is being called off.
Now we were on our own.
This will be their home for 72.
Society of the Snow, a new adventure drama made available on Netflix, draws its inspiration from a horrific real-life plane disaster that occurred in the Andes Range in 1972. The tragedy occurred on October 13, 1972, when Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, which was transporting a Uruguayan rugby team from Montevideo, Uruguay to Santiago, Chile, crashed into the Andes Mountains, ripping off the wings and tail of the plane. The jet was bringing the squad from Uruguay to Chile. 12 of the plane's 45 passengers perished upon impact, leaving only 33 of them who survived the initial collision. Out of that group, just 16 people were able to survive the frigid conditions, injuries, and landslides that occurred in the region. Over the 72 agonizing days that passed until a rescue crew arrived, the survivors were eventually compelled to consume the flesh of those who had passed away among them to maintain their survival. What caused the airliner to go down? At the time of its departure from Montevideo, Uruguay to Santiago, Chile, Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 was transporting a total of 45 passengers and crew members. Nearly half of the passengers were members of the amateur rugby team that was sponsored by the Old Christians Club. Other passengers included relatives and family members of the players. As a result of the weather, the airplane was forced to make an overnight stop in Mendoza, Argentina. The following day, October 13, 1972, the aircraft took off once more and was flying through the Andes when the co-pilot of the controls began to drop. He was under the impression that he had successfully traversed the mountain range due to his false belief. As a result of the ensuing collision with the mountain, both wings of the aircraft were severed, and the fuselage was able to slide down the hillside. In addition, the back of the aircraft detached while it was in the air, taking 5 persons inside with it. Following a protracted descent, the front end of the aircraft eventually came to a stop at an altitude that was greater than 11,000 feet. According to a recent interview with Time magazine, a survivor named Dr. Roberto Canessa, who was 19 years old at the time, stated that the plane began to slide at an unbelievable speed once it lost its wings and tail. At one point, I was afraid that my feet were going to go through the back of my ears. When everything finally came to an end, I couldn't believe I was still alive. It was completely ridiculous. What have the people who survived the crash had to say about it? The book Society of the Snow, written by Pablo Vierci, served as the source of inspiration for the film. Each of the 16 survivors submitted their first-person narratives to the book. When NBC News reporter Tom Yamas asked Dr. Roberto Canessa, one of the passengers, about his memories of the accident in November 2023, Dr. Canessa shared his thoughts with Yamas. "I thought I was going to die," Canessa, who was only 19 years old at the time of the accident, mentioned in her recollection. On October 29th, an avalanche destroyed the fuselage by burying it in snow, resulting in the deaths of 8 further persons and locking other survivors inside. They were successful in escaping, but they were forced to go back since a blizzard struck. Although they were trapped within the fuselage, the survivors consumed the bodies of people who had perished in the avalanche. When that point arrived, there were only 19 individuals still alive. The survivors were eventually successful in escaping the fuselage, although 3 more individuals would subsequently pass away as a result of their injuries. Canessa stated that it was challenging to see Society of the Snow, because in contrast to previous retellings of the narrative, Netflix accurately depicted the distressing aspects of the event, even going so far as to film at the actual location where the disaster occurred. The performers and staff members of the film established a camp in the mountains, where they were forced to endure the same freezing temperatures that Canessa and the other survivors were forced to endure. I found myself deep within that location once more. When Canessa watched the movie, she remarked, "I felt like I had returned to the fuselage." During the conversation, Canessa recalled the moment when he and the other survivors realized that their ability to survive rested on their ability to consume their deceased teammates as well as other individuals who had perished in the accident. "If I were to die, I would be proud that my body would be used for someone else," he recalled thinking at the time. "I thought that that would be the case." Nando Parado, a member of the squad, and Canessa eventually made their way out of the mountain range to seek assistance. On December 22, 1972, the survivors were located and rescued at long last. Following the accident, Canessa, who was a medical student at the time, went on to become a well-known pediatric cardiologist. Even though the events that transpired on Flight 571 were a tragedy, he acknowledges that it was also a lesson that taught him about how to avoid difficulties in life and to have faith in yourself. Where are the people who survived the plane disaster in the Andes in 1972? 14 of the 16 people that survived are still living today. In 2023, Jose Luis Coche Inciarte passed away due to cancer, as reported by the AFP. Javier Methal also passed away in 2015. Herdsman Sergio Catalan, who was 91 years old when he passed away in 2020, was the person who came into contact with Fernando Parado and Roberto Canessa after they had traveled through the Andes for 10 days from the crash site. Although some of the survivors went on to lead private lives, a significant number of them went on to become motivational speakers and writers who wrote about their experiences. She was 19 years old at the time of the accident and is now 70 years old. Canessa wrote, "I had to survive." Following his successes as a motivational speaker, Parado went on to write the book Miracle of the Andes. Carlitos Paez is the author of the piece entitled After the 10th Day. Memories of the Andes is the title of the memoir that Inciarte penned. The book written by Vierci gives up-to-date information on all of the survivors, including Eduardo Stach, who went on to become an architect and the proprietor of one of the most reputable architecture firms in Uruguay, as stated in the book written by Vierci, and Pancho Delgado, who established a law practice. According to the book, Gustavo Zerbino worked in the pharmaceutical industry before becoming the director and principal executive officer at the Uruguayan Rugby Federation. As stated in Vierci's book, Tintin Vizintin continued to be actively involved in the sport of rugby and eventually became president of the Uruguayan Rugby Union. The survivors get together once a year. According to the book Society of the Snow, which served as the inspiration for the film, the survivors get together on December 22nd, the first day of the rescue, to hold a ritual commemoration. Every one of them is reunited with their own families. Through this method, they've witnessed the birth of all their friends' children in addition to their own children. At this point, the majority of their children are between the ages of 18 and 26, which is precisely that same age range that they were when they were on the mountain. The text goes on to say that they serve as a reminder of themselves. In the book, it's stated that Canessa constructed a salon in his home to use it as a meeting place for the group. According to Llamas, a significant number of them joined together to see an early showing of Society of the Snow, which was orchestrated by Netflix. The men erupted into a resounding round of applause as soon as the film concluded. Following that, they embraced one another and shed tears. If you've watched this far, please share your thoughts in the comments down below for more fascinating subjects. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos.